Once upon a time, in a cozy little cottage nestled right beside a sprawling, sun-dappled forest, lived a dog named Baxter and a cat named Penelope. They weren't just pets, they were the best of friends, and they cherished their quiet life together. One sunny morning, Penelope was dusting the mantelpiece when her eyes fell upon their wall calendar. "Baxter, come look!" she exclaimed, her tail twitching with excitement. "According to this, today is my birthday." "Hooray!" barked Baxter, his whole body wiggling with joy. "A birthday? That calls for a celebration. But how? I've never actually celebrated one before." Penelope tilted her head. She was fairly certain birthdays were an annual event, but she didn't want to sound like a know-it-all, so she simply said, "Yes, a celebration is exactly what we need, but what should we do?" While Baxter and Penelope pondered their party plans, a secret mission was already underway. On the other side of the forest, a group of children who adored the furry duo had a plan. They were going to surprise Penelope with a magnificent birthday cake. There was just one tiny problem. They had no idea what goes into a cake. To them, a cake was a crumbly, sweet thing. So they improvised with the logic only children possess. First, they found a large round cake tin. "Cakes are crumbly," one of them declared wisely, "and so is sand." So they filled the tin with fine, soft sand. But the sand was too loose. "It needs to stick together," another child reasoned, and they poured in water, mixing it into a thick, gritty paste. With great effort, they managed to keep most of the sludge inside the tin. For the final touch, they gathered small, smooth white pebbles. "Fancy cakes have almonds on top," they decided, "and these look just like almonds." They carefully arranged the pebbles on the surface. They placed their creation in the oven for bake. Of course, they didn't turn it on. That was a rule for grown-ups only. An hour later, they pulled out a perfectly formed, beautiful cake of sand and stones. It looked incredible. Resisting the urge to taste it themselves, they carried their masterpiece through the forest to the little cottage. "Hello, Baxter and Penelope," they chimed. "We made you a surprise cake for Penelope's birthday." "What a wonderful surprise," Penelope purred, truly touched. "We were just wondering how to celebrate." "You're going to love it," the children insisted. "It's really, really nice." Everyone gathered in the kitchen. Baxter and Penelope quickly realized the cake was, in fact, entirely inedible, but they loved the children's kind hearts. So they sliced the sand cake, placed it on plates, held it under their noses, and made loud yum-yum sounds, pretending to take big bites. The children giggled and pretended to eat their slices too. "Thank you so much," Penelope said warmly. "We've never had such a delicious cake." Once the happy children had gone home, Baxter and Penelope discreetly tipped the sand and pebbles into the nearby river. "That was incredibly sweet of them," Baxter said, his stomach rumbling. "But now I'm genuinely hungry for some real cake." "Me too," agreed Penelope. "Since it's my birthday, why don't we bake one ourselves?" "Brilliant! And I know the secret to a perfect cake," Baxter announced proudly. "You just add all your favorite foods. If you add 5 delicious things, the cake becomes 5 times as good. If we add 100, it will be 100 times as good." "That makes perfect sense," Penelope declared. "We're going to make the most delicious cake in history." They donned their aprons and got to work. They started with the basics: flour, milk, and eggs. "The cake must be sweet," Penelope said, pouring in an entire bag of sugar. "And a little salty," added Baxter, shaking in a spoonful of salt. "Some butter and jam," suggested Penelope. "No jam," Baxter countered. "I much prefer cheddar cheese," and in went a whole block of sharp cheddar. "It needs something savory," Penelope mused, adding a slice of crispy bacon. "And we can't forget nuts," Baxter said, crushing a bag of walnuts and pouring them in. "If we're adding nuts, we must add cucumber for crunch," Penelope decided, adding thin slices. "And bones," Baxter insisted. "Bones are the tastiest food in the world." A few choice bones joined the mix. My turn. Mice are my absolute favorite, Penelope chirped, adding 5 small mice to the bowl. And sausages for me, barked Baxter, adding a link of sausages. We must have cream, Penelope added, pouring in a carton of heavy cream. A touch of garlic, Baxter suggested, tossing in a few cloves. And chocolate, finished, breaking in a large candy bar. They added every single food item they loved, leaving only a loaf of bread, which neither of them cared for. The mixture was thick and strange, but their mouths watered in anticipation. They baked the cake for an hour, turning the oven on as they had no parents to stop them. When it was done, they placed it by an open window to cool, its bizarre and powerful aroma drifting through the forest. You know, Penelope said, since the children were so kind to us, we should share our cake with them. Great idea, Baxter agreed, and they trotted off into the forest to find their friends. Meanwhile, a scruffy, stray dog named Rocky was wandering nearby. Suddenly, he caught a whiff of the most incredible smell he had ever encountered. "That smells like the tastiest thing in the universe," he muttered, his stomach growling. He followed the scent to the cottage and saw the cake cooling by the window. His eyes watered and his mouth drooled. Without a second thought, he leaped up, grabbed the cake, and devoured it in a matter of seconds. It was divine. But moments later, a terrible feeling washed over him. His stomach began to churn and ache with a pain unlike any he had ever known. What was in that cake?" he groaned, collapsing under a large oak tree. When Baxter, Penelope, and the children returned, the cake was gone. What happened? Then one of the children pointed. "Look, there's a big dog over there with a stomach as round as a barrel. He must have eaten it." Rocky was in too much agony to run. "I'm sorry," he moaned. "It smelled so good, I couldn't help myself." Penelope looked at the miserable dog, and then at her friends. "Don't worry," she said with a laugh. "It looks like you did us a favor. If we had eaten that cake, my birthday would have been ruined. I'm glad you ate it instead." "I'm not," Rocky whimpered, and everyone chuckled. "There's just one problem," said Baxter. "We put all the food in our house into that cake. Now we have nothing to eat." "Not to worry," the children said in unison. "Come have dinner at our house. We'll make mud pie for dessert." So Baxter and Penelope had a wonderful birthday dinner of soup, meatballs, and bones at the children's house. They politely pretended to eat the mud pie, and all night long, the naughty dog Rocky sat by the river, crying in pain from the most peculiar birthday cake ever baked.